Alright, YouTubers, I'm Mr. Digital 45, and now we're going to do the R's. First up, we got some Tom Berenger and Rustler's Rhapsody. I don't know why I have a hard time saying that. Next up, we got some Val Kilmer and Real Genius. Next up, we got some James Dean and Rebel Without a Cause. Alright, next up we got Tom Hanks and Paul Newman and Jude Law in The Road to Perdition. One of Paul Newman's last roles. Next up we got the Tom Cruise classic, Risky Business. Also starring Rebecca De Mornay. Next up we got Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker in Rush Hour. Alright, next up we got Kirk Douglas in Reign of Fire. Next up we got Vivian Lee and Warren Beatty in The Roman Spring of Mrs. Stone. Next up we got a movie called Raging Phoenix. Next up we got a movie called Room 205. Next up we got Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, and Ben Stiller in the movie Reality Bites. Next up we got some John Wayne, Rio Lobo. Next up we got some Jude Law and Forest Whitaker in Repo Men. Next up we got Peter Weller in RoboCop 2, also with Nancy Allen. Next up we got some Ben Affleck, Gary Sinise, and Charlize Theron in Reindeer Games, the director's cut. Next up we got some Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Running Man. Next up we got The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Sean William Scott in The Rundown. Next up we got Matt Dillon and Diane Lane in Rumblefish. I think Mickey Rourke is in this too. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think also Nicolas Cage. Also we got a movie called The Reeds. Next up we got some William DiCaprio and Romeo and Juliet, the director's cut. I think so. Next up, we got Elvis Presley and Roustabout. Alright, let me move this pile over. Ugh. Yeah. A little sleight of hand. Next up, we got a movie called Rituals. Cal Holbrook and Lauren Stain are the main stars of this one. Very good. I suggest you watch that one if you can find it. Next up, we got some P.J. Souls and the Ramones and Clint Howard in Rock and Roll High School, a Roger Corman production. Next up, Peter Weller, RoboCop. It's pretty cool, so book. That Rock and Roll High School was a still book too. Next up, we got some George Segal, Roller Coaster. Alright, next up we got an Alfred Hitchcock classic with James Stewart and Grace Kelly and Raymond Burr. This is Rear Window. Alright, next up we got some Mel Gibson and The Road Warrior. I should put that with my Mad Max collection because they should stay together. Okay, but I will eventually. Next up, we got The Rescuers and The Rescuers Down Under, a 2-movie collection. From Disney. Next up, we got the Steelbook, the 4K of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And there's the back of it. Hold on. Yeah. It is the 4K or Blu-ray. It's cool. The Steelbook. Okay. Next up, we got some Sylvester Stallone and Rocky. Yo, Adrian. Next up, we got Sylvester Stallone again and Carl Weathers. Don't forget about Carl Weathers in the first one and this one. And Burgess Meredith. We got Rocky 2. And here he comes again. Sylvester Stallone taking on Mr. T, known as Clubber Lang in this one, Rocky 3. Next up, we got 4, Sylvester Stallone taking on Dolph Lundgren. Next up, we got Sylvester Stallone and Rocky 5. Known as Rocky 6, but it's called Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. That wraps up my Rocky collection, because I don't think I have any of the Creed movies. Next up, we got the documentary starring Taron Egerton as Elton John and Rocket Man. Next up, we got the Disney classic Robin Hood. Alright, next up we got Robert De Niro in Raging Bull. Alright, next up we got Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in Revolutionary Road. Yes, they did another movie besides Titanic together. Next up, we got the director's cut of Requiem for a Dream. Jennifer Connelly. This, Jared Leto. This is a weird, wild out movie, but it's good. It's an acquired taste, I should say. Next up, we got some Sissy Spacek and Mel Gibson in The River. Bless my soul. Next up, we got some Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Belushi in Red Heat. Alright, next up we got Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner in the action-adventure classic Romancing the Stone. Next up, we got some movie called Reckless from 1984. Adrian Quinn and Daryl Hannah. Aidan Quinn. Not Adrian. Aidan Quinn. Sorry for the mistake. I'm sure you guys would correct me if I didn't correct myself. Alright, next up we got Ratatouille. Alright, next we got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Race to Witch Mountain. I gotta take the stickers off of some of these. I haven't had time to do it. Since I've been reorganizing everything in this room. Next up we got some Romeo and Juliet with Olivia Hussey. Next up, we got some Kim Basinger and Val Kilmer and The Real McCoy. Next up, we got some Jon Voight and Eric Roberts and Rebecca De Mornay in Runaway Train. Next up, we got some Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis in the cult classic Road Games. And I believe this is a double. Here we go again. We got John Wayne and Rhea Lobo. So, there, I do have a double. Next up, we got Bob Hope and Bing Crosby in Road to Bali. I don't know how I got that one. I think that somebody gave me that. Next up, we got some Nicolas Cage and Lawrence Fishburne and Running with the Devil. Next up, we got Nicolas Cage again. This time with Sean Connery and Ed Harris and The Rock. One of these days, I'll learn how to speak, people. Next up, we got the sequel to The Magnificent Seven called Return of the Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner. And one of the Peter Sellers' Pink Panther movies, The Return of the Pink Panther. Oh, my leg is falling asleep. Oh. Oh. And I guess we have a double of Reality Bites too. So, there you go. So I'll have to give that one away. Next up, we got Johnny Depp as Rango. Picked up for $1.25 at Best Big Lots. Oh, always gotta stretch my leg out. Next up, we got Jason Schwartzman, Bill Murray, and Olivia Williams and Rushmore. Next up, we got John Cusack in The Raven. Alright. Next up, we got a movie called Rangers with Matt McCoy, Glenn Plummer, and Corbin Burnson. Next up, we got Kate Winslet in The Reader. Yeah, there's a lot of R's. Wait till we get to the S's. They're really gonna drive me crazy. Next up, we got some Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes in Rising Sun. Next up, we got some Kevin Costner and an all-star cast, and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, extended version. Next up, we got Jet Li, Legend of the Red Dragon. So this should be under L, not R's. I just seen Red Dragon. But there that is. Movie is. Let's throw that over there. Next up, we got Resident Evil and Michelle Rodriguez. I think this is the only Resident Evil movie I have. Next up, we got some Mel Gibson in Ransom. Next up, we got, ooh, it's got glare to it. Red Riding Hood, the alternative cut. With my extra light is on that case, which is glistening. It's giving that big old light sign here, because it go like this and it goes like that. So. There you go on that one. Next up, we got Richard Pryor double stand-up comedy double feature. One's live on the Sunset Strip, and I can't remember what the other one is. Oh, that's Richard Pryor. They're both hilarious and fun. So I suggest that one. That's some of his stand-up. Next up, we got Mia Farrow and the Roman Polanski classic, Rosemary's Baby. Alright, next up we got some Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston in Rockstar. Next up, we got some Tom Berenger and Sam Elliott and Gary Busey in The Rough Riders. Next up, we got the Criterion version of The Rock. It has an extended cut on it. So I'm going to keep both of my Rock movies, because this one's extended cut and the other one's just the regular theatrical version. And plus this is Criterion, so yeah, ain't getting rid of that. Next up, we got a movie called Rabid, not the 1977 version with Marilyn Chambers by David Cronenberg, but this is a newer movie called Rabid. Next up, we got an animated movie called Rio. Followed by the sequel, Rio 2. Next up, we got Shukasogi and Revenge of the Ninja. It's supposed to be a sequel to Enter the Ninja, but it's not. It's just a ninja trilogy. They're all different movies, different stories, but they're like it's like a trilogy too. There's Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, and Ninja 3: The Domination. So that's why they call it Ninja 3. Different storylines. Shukasogi plays in all of them with different characters. Weird, but here's Revenge of the Ninja. Next up, we got a movie called A River Runs Through It. I think Brad Pitt's in this movie. It's directed by Robert Redford. Yeah, it's Brad Pitt. Alright, next up we got Simon Pegg in Run, Fat Boy, Run. Next up, we got the Quentin Tarantino classic, Reservoir Dogs. Next up, we got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Brigitte Nielsen in Red Sonja. Next up, we got some Bette Midler in The Rose. And here's another double. This time it's Johnny Depp, Rango, but I think it's the DVD version. I think the other one was the Blu-ray. So, well, upgraded. Next up, we got the Mel Brooks comedy, Robin Hood and Men in Tights. Oh, my leg. Oh, my leg. Oh, blocking the light. I'm blocking the light. Next, we got Maria Ford and Don the Dragon Wilson in Ring of Fire. Next up, we got Danny DeVito and Bette Midler in Ruthless People. Judge Reinhold is in this too, and Helen Slater. Very good movie. I love it. Next up, we got some Van Damme and Replicant. Next up, we got a movie called Red Summer. Followed by a movie called The Row. Alright, next up we got some Jet Li and Aaliyah, Romeo Must Die. And we got another double. A Ratatouille. Man, people, I'm telling you, I have too many doubles. Next up, we got Jamie Foxx and Ray. This one I showed you the other day in the pickups. Rudolph, the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Island of Misfit Toys. Next up, we got some John Wayne, Dean Martin, and Ricky Nelson, and Howard Hawks, Rio Bravo. Boy, I'm tongue-tied today. Next up, we got some Matt Damon and Edward Norton and the Rounders. Followed by Clint Eastwood and Charlie Sheen in The Rookie. And here's a director's cut of Revenge. Kevin Costner, Anthony Quinn, and Madeline Stowe. Next up, we got Dennis Leary. Followed by Robert De Niro, an all-star cast, and Red Lights. Alright, here's a story about the Runaways. A group came out in the 70s with Joan Jett and Lita Ford and Sherry Terry. I can't remember the other. Yeah, my brain, I can't think of the other two. Sandy somebody. I'll damn, you guys are gonna kill me in the comments probably. Okay, but this is Kristen Stewart and Dakota Fanning in The Runaways. I don't know why I can't think. Next up, we got some Meryl Streep, Kevin Bacon, and David Stratton in The River Wild. Next up, we got some Jackie Chan and Robin B. Hood. And last, next up, we got Ring of Fear. And we got The Ring 2, which I don't seem to have the first ring. I'm shocked. I thought I did. Unless I misplaced it somewhere. It's all mixed up since I got that new show. And Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan and Rush Hour 3 is going to wrap things up for us today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this content. I try to do these videos as much as I can, but with my regular job, it's hard. I don't have time sometimes. But thank you all for watching, and until next time, see ya.